I am uploading a second chapter because I'm so behind. So we're ready for chapter 16, The Other Historians from the Infinity Ring, book 4, Curse of the Ancients by Matt Dillapena. The Other Historians. Dak was half asleep and completely unaware that he was dreaming, but the dream was a good one. So he kept his eyes closed and followed along with the story. He was at Sarah's birthday just outside her barn, and her uncle had just blindfolded him and handed him a stick. He spun Dak around several times and then let go, saying, "Let her rip." Dak staggered a little bit, dizzy, then started hacking at the swinging piñata, which he knew was somewhere in front of him. He missed twice, then connected on his third try. On his first swing, he reared back and whacked the piñata with all his strength, feeling the side cave in. He could hear the candy start pouring out. When Dak ripped off the blindfold, he saw it wasn't candy at all. It was blocks of high-end cheese. We know Dak loves cheese. All different sizes and kinds. They looked beautiful, streaming out onto the thick summer grass. The other kids were already converging with their empty pillowcases, scooping the cheese blocks up with two hands and shoving them inside. And Dak shouted, "Hey, wait for me! I have to get my pillowcase." But he couldn't find his pillowcase. Not anywhere. And all the while, more and more kids raced past him, pouncing on what was left from the piñata he broke open. "Wake up," he heard Sarah whispering in his ear. "But they're taking all my cheese," he told her. "Dak, wake up," she whispered louder this time. He opened his eyes and he saw all the imprisoned Mayans quietly filling out the open door of the prison cell. Sarah pulled him to his feet and they joined the line. And soon they were sneaking past two sleeping monks, dunking out of the building and hurrying into night. Dak followed Sarah over to where Rick was standing. Rick pointed toward the towering observatory, and without saying a word, the three of them split off for the others, hurried through the village in that direction. As they ran, Dak kept looking all around, worried someone might hop out from the bushes and snatch them up. He saw several monks milling about in the square, though it was too dark to see what they were doing. He saw a giant wooden cross leaning up against one of the huts. He saw storm clouds gathering in the distant sky. Rick opened the observatory doors, ushered Dak and Sarah inside, then led them to the far corner of the large room where Dak glanced up at the open roof. The three of them stood there for several quiet seconds, hands on knees, trying to catch their breath and looking all around. Sarah was the first one to straighten back up. She took a deep breath and said, "Rick, how did you know?" The answer was friendship. Rick took his hands off his knees too. "A conversation I had with Kaisa," he said, linking his fingers on top of his head and taking a few more deep breaths. Dak pulled the S-square out of his breechcloth and said, "Dude, that was almost 1,000 years ago. How could it possibly apply today?" Rick shook his head. "Trust me, I was just as surprised as you guys." "Do you think Kaisa is a historian?" Dak powered the S-square and brought up the latest riddle, which Rick had yet to see. "Before we look at this, I just want to say something, okay? It seems like something really messed up is happening here. Something other than the break." Dak looked at Sarah. "Once we fix what we were supposed to fix, if you guys want to help these people in some other ways, I'm totally open to that." Sarah gave him a small smile and said, "Thanks, Dak. Let's concentrate on the break for now. We can discuss everything else later." Dak realized it was the first time he had seen Sarah smile in a long time. "I just know it's important to you," he said. "It is." Rick cleared his throat. "I want to say something too. It was wrong of me to just wander off like that. I apologize. I also want to assure you I'm as committed to our mission as I've ever been." "We know you are," Sarah said. Dak patted Rick on the shoulder. "It's cool, dude. Just remember, love is a tricky game." "Moving right along," Sarah said, pointing at the S-square in Dak's hand. "All right." Dak turned the screen on so Rick and Sarah could see. "We were thinking you might be able to help us with the second riddle, Rick." Dak silently reread the words upside down. "To save the reproduction of the treasures north, do the following. Seek the help of those who follow the most important thing in the world. Then dig deep, deeper, deepest, unlocking a long locked door. It will take a polyglot to understand the wisdom of glyphs and the forgery of a curse. So we're supposed to find people who follow friendship? Rick said. Apparently we already did, Dak said. Everyone in the holding cell knew the answer to that question. Well, everyone but Sarah. Ha ha, Sarah said, rolling her eyes. All of the Mayans in the cell had been to the cave earlier, which means they're proud of their Mayan roots, right? My hair is sticking up. Exactly, Dak turned to Rick and said, we learned from Babka that the monks had caused a split among the Mayan people. Some are embracing the Spanish influence. Others want to remain loyal to ancient Mayan ways. So this break, Sarah pointed out to Dak, has to center around something they stashed in the cave. Most likely, Pascal's Codex, Dak said. It's not in the cave anymore, Rick said. According to Babka's little brother, everything's been cleared out. He told me the monks confiscated it all. Dak smoothed his own forehead with the heel of his hand. Dude, I just realized something. Did you guys see the monks in the square on the way over? Rick and Sarah both nodded. Dak turned to Rick. Back in the cell, Babka explained that every hut with a secret friendship sculpture out in the front was storing secret Mayan artifacts. The problem is, over the past few weeks, they've been transferring everything up to the cave. They thought it would be safer. Sarah's eyes grew bigger. They're piling everything in the square. They're planning to burn it. Bingo, said Dak. And that bonfire, my friend, is what otherwise known as auto de fe. They all just stared at one another, mouths hanging open in the shock, until Dak said, we have to stop it. Pascal's Codex has to be preserved. This got to be the break, right? Which means that's the one that has survived history is fake. Sarah took the S-square out of Dak's hands and held it out to Rick. Do you understand everything else in the riddle? Well, a polyglot is someone who can speak or write multiple languages, he said, looking up at Sarah. Like you, dude? Dak said. Rick nodded. So we need Rick's language ability, Sarah said, in order to understand the wisdom of the glyphs and the forgery of the curse. She patted Rick on the back. We're glad you came back. Dak sensed Rick might be feeling a little too good about himself. He opened his mouth to say something sarcastic, but just then he heard someone entering through the front door of the observatory. Dak snatched the S-square from Sarah and shoved it back into his breechcloth. Quick, Rick said, follow me. He pulled a candle out of its holder on the wall and started toward one of the doors. Dak and Sarah followed through the door and down a narrow staircase. Then the three of them crept slowly through a dark hall, Rick leading the way with his candle. Dak wasn't sure the basement was the best idea until he spotted an open door at the opposite end. Rick stopped right in front of it, waiting for Dak and Sarah to catch up. Then the three of them looked inside, where there was a tall Mayan woman sitting in a chair, holding a wooden box in her lap, grinning. Dak saw she had a birthmark on her cheek. I've been waiting for you, she said. That lady from earlier. Dak let Rick and Sarah take the two empty chairs, and he stood behind them, studying the Mayan woman and the wooden box on her lap. There were a number of ancient Mayan artifacts inside, including several lockets that resembled the one he'd given to Rick. The woman got close up to the door, to glide up to close the door, and then sat back down and said, I'm going to come out and ask, are you from the future? It's a big ask. Dak, Sarah, and Rick all looked at one another. Then Dak turned back to the woman and said, we are, ma'am. The woman covered her mouth and her eyes turned glassy. I knew it, she said, pointing to Rick. As soon as you showed up earlier in the evening in that ill-fitting robe, I had this strange feeling in my stomach. She shook her head and said, wow, I did not expect to be having this conversation tonight. My turn to ask a question, Dak said. Are you an historian? Yes, I am. What about those two other ladies, Rick said, the ones that were sitting here earlier? No, it's just me now. She covered her mouth again briefly, then took a deep breath and said, forgive me, I just never thought I'd actually live to see the day. Finally, Dax said, turning to Sarah and Rick, I was beginning to think there weren't any historians in the all Mesoamerican. Oh no, the woman said, we're here, just extremely spread out. In fact, this region is actually the birthplace of the historian presence in America. The first historians in the Americas was Mayan. Sarah said, who? When? That could be her relatives. An amazing woman known as Acna, she said, a long, long time ago. By the way, I'm Maria. Maria, Dax said, that doesn't sound very Mayan to me. It's not. My parents passed away when I was an infant, and I was raised by Spanish nuns. They're the ones who named me. When I got older, I began researching my Mayan roots, which is how I stumbled into the underground historian movement. I joined immediately, hoping I could help make tomorrow's world a better and safer place. Dax, Sarah, and Rick introduced themselves to Maria, and then Rick rolled out 2 locket pieces out of his bag in his belt and held them out. I came in here earlier because of this. Dude, you broke my gift, Dax says. That hurts. See what's written inside here? Rick said, turning the locket toward Dax. How about a little help? Dax said. You know I can't read glyphs. Rick turned the locket halves toward Maria, who said a single word. Observatory. We are in the same village a long time ago, Rick told her, and I knew a girl named Kaisa. She tried to give me a locket like this one when we were leaving, but I dropped it, and that's why I was asking about her earlier tonight. So you're sure you've never heard of her? Maria shook her head and told him, but I need to show you something fascinating. She dug into the wooden box, pulled out several similar-looking ancient lockets. Each of you take one and open it, she said. Dax pulled his out and opened it to the glyph inside. Excuse me. It was exactly like the one Rick had shown him. Rick and Sarah held out their open lockets too. They all say observatory, Rick said. We are constantly finding more and more lockets, Maria said, and they all have the same word written inside. We still don't know why. Sarah put her locket down. Kaisa was really trying to tell you something, Rick. He shrugged but didn't say anything. Dax could tell the guys were feeling all sensitive again. He made a mental note to lead Rick through a quick seminar on love as soon as they could carve out the free time. He always assumed the author of this message was Acna, Maria said. That was why previous historians established the observatory as their base. According to legend, Acna was so committed to our cause, she worked all the way up till the day she passed away from old age. Whoever wrote it, Dax said, well, why were they being so vague? She probably worried the information would get into the wrong hands, Sarah said. Where they are historians, there's always, usually, time wardens. Of course, Maria said. Then she stood up. Come with me. I'd like to show the 3 of you something else. Dax, Sarah, and Rick followed Maria halfway down the hall until she stopped, knelt down, and shone her candlelight on the lower portion of the wall. She felt with her fingers along the wall until it came to a small keyhole. I've never mentioned this to anyone, she said, looking up. There's a locked door here. It's been this way at least as far back as I go. But we believe there's a secret room behind this wall. According to legend, it was the meeting place for the first ever historians in this part of the world, led by, of course, by our remarkable founder, Acna. Dax saw 2 tiny snakes carved into the stone near the keyhole. Check it out, he said. Sarah turned to Rick, who had tensed at the sight. Could 2 people be into snakes that much? She asked. We have to get inside, Rick said. Sarah nodded. The riddle says we're supposed to unlock a long locked door, she said. This has to be it. Dax pressed on the small stone door and then tried to rattle it. Deeper, deepest, he said. He was getting excited thinking about all the historian history that might be on the other side of the stone wall. Talk to us, Maria. How do you open up this bad boy? There is no key, Maria said. Many generations of historians have stood in this very place, wishing they could see what's inside. But locked out we have remained. Babka! Dax shouted, springing to his feet. We have to track that dude down, ASAP. He's a locksmith. And that's the end of chapter 16. Chapter 17 is called The Way Events Unfolded. So we only have 4 chapters left. Hope you have a good day. I'll see you sometime soon.